Hello and welcome to the Note Coach podcast. This is episode 366, Knowing You're Going to Make It. I'm your host, Suzanne Kohlberg. Now, I am an avid reader. I read at least one book a week, often two or three. I love fiction. I love personal development. I love biographies. I especially love memoirs. And when you read a memoir, particularly of somebody who's, quite famous, you read that book knowing that they're going to make it. So even though they have the struggles and the ups and downs, you know that by the end of it, they're rich, they're famous, they're successful. Yet we don't know that about ourselves, especially if we are reading these things when we're having a personal winter, a dark night of the soul, a downtime. So what I wanted to chat about today is that, knowing you're going to make it. Because often when we set out to do something, like this is episode 366 of this show. If you're new to it, if this is your first one, I did daily episodes for a year. So 365 days of podcasts, and now I'm recording when I feel like it. And I was feeling really impassioned after reading a memoir in the last couple of days that I enjoyed thoroughly. But what had me thinking is it's so easy to get advice from somebody who's already made it, who's already successful. And they say life's lived forward and understood backward, but they are writing this on reflection. They're writing this on the other side of, overcoming the situation that in the moment seems insurmountable. But what if you're reading that in the time that your situation feels insurmountable? How you don't know, like you don't know what the outcome's going to be. You're still on the journey. And then we can be easily falling into this compare trap, this comparison of they're so much better than I am, or they're so much further ahead than I am, or, they've got something that I don't have. But it's reminding yourself and bringing yourself back to you have enough, you know enough, you're doing enough, and trusting that the actions you're going to take are going to turn out in the long run. And I saw a quote recently, I wrote it down, I've got my journal here, that, it just really, really stood out to me. And it was, most great people have achieved their greatest success just one step beyond their greatest failure. It's by Napoleon Hill. I'll say it again. Most people have achieved their greatest success just one step beyond their greatest failure. So at this moment, listening to this, you might be in that moment that feels like your greatest failure, in your low point, in your like, can I keep doing this? This is so hard. This is exhausting. I'm burnt out. I'm depleted. But trusting that the next step could be the one that turns the corner, could be the one that you never know. A couple of years from now, you could be writing your great memoir or story of how, I was on the bare bones of my ass and I stuck with it, and this was the time. Because what all of them have in common, these memoirs, these stories of people who've had great success, is they've had great failures. They've had dark nights of the soul. They've had times where it feels like everyone and everything was against them, but they didn't give up. Often they gloss over that. And when you think about it, of course they do. The media, like success sells. People don't want to read about doom and gloom. Most of us live that in the day to day. We want to read about the 1%. We want to read about the amazing, success story. We want that hope. But having that hope for ourselves that we too can make it, can do it. And what actually is success for us? Do we want to be a million or a billionaire? Do we want to be the 1%? Or do we want to just, like I was just chatting to my husband about this morning. It's like, what would be success for us? Owning our own home, because in the current climate, and being able to do one really big holiday once a year, that'd be enough. And sometimes when you get really clear on what success is for you, you can realize you're a hell of a lot closer than you think. You might be inspired by these 1% stories and these memoirs and these tales of, bare bones or ass rags to riches kind of thing. But you don't necessarily need to go on that whole journey yourself, and you don't need to hit rock bottom in order to start making changes. I think in many ways, being at rock bottom, because a lot of these success stories do talk about rock bottom, it's easier to make changes from there, because when you hit rock bottom, the only way is up. But when you're kind of in this like average place, like think about it, when you go to like a water park and they have those inner tubes that you kind of lie in and float around. I love those. We live quite close to a water park here, and the kids like the slides and the splash zone. No, I like getting into the inner tube and just floating around. Those tubes are so easy to get into. You just kind of slide into them and then you're being carried down the stream. They're really hard to get out of. Like, I can't get out of one of those without making a massive splash and probably taking out 2 or 3 people around, knocking them off, because, so we can live our lives floating in an inner tube. It's not wonderful, but it's not terrible. It's just kind of like, yeah, this is how things are going. And we desire to make change and we desire to improve. But in order to do that, we need to hop out of the inner tube, and that risks a splash and knocking people over and, being a bit disconcerting to people around you. So sometimes we stay until the tube is literally taken out from under us, is popped, and then we're in rock bottom. And as I said, when you hit rock bottom, the only way is up. So to be able to make changes, to be able to create the next level of you, to be able to go after what you want from that place of kind of comfort. There's a book, I haven't read it, but I've heard about it. It's like From Good to Great. And the premise apparently is that, many of us live a good life, but not many of us live a great life. But it's harder to go from good to great than from rock bottom to great, because, as I said, when you hit rock bottom, the only way is up. So what I want you to get from this, or consider or think about today, is how would you act differently if you knew you were going to make it? When you follow people who were rags and now riches, or who were on the bare bones of their arse and are now really successful, and you desire that for yourself, but you feel the doubt and you feel the fear and you feel the uncertainty. If you knew without shadow of a doubt that you were going to make it, your version of make it, as I said, not necessarily a millionaire or a billionaire on the front cover of Forbes or something, but, in my case, owning a home and having a really nice holiday once a year, how would you act differently? How would you show up? And how would you handle it when there's invariable disappointments? I have disappointments, in my business, people who are unhappy, people who unsubscribe, people who send me nasty messages, or, so many things. Like, it's the day to day that you navigate in your life, in your business. But, if you don't ever rock the boat, then you probably don't ever go anywhere. That's like that quote about a sailor, like a good sailor is never made in a harbor. Like, the ship is what can you sail at sea? And by setting sail, by going after your goal, your dream, your desire, what could happen, and who will you become along the way? And how would you act differently if you trusted, if you knew that you were going to make it for your version of success, versus the trepidation of like hanging out in the pool tube, but never really actually going anywhere? If you're catching this live, as in when it first drops on Monday, the 6th of May, I'm going live at 10 a.m., my first YouTube live, talking about a reflection of a year of daily podcasting. Love to have you join me. If you're catching this afterward, the replay will be available. And if you've got ideas of topics you want me to do YouTube lives on, this is something I'm trialing, because I like being a participant at YouTube live, so I can chat with people in the comments, but I don't actually need to get dressed up because I'm not on camera. So I'm trying this in my business. As I said, this first topic is reflections, lessons learned from 365 days of daily podcasting. What would you like to know? Any of the topics that I talk about: boundaries, personal development, growing a business. And yeah, if it ends up being popular, I might keep doing it. I don't know. I like to, fumble fuck my way forward. So YouTube Live is something I'm trialing. Hope to see you there or on the replay. Bye for now.